It's the Sod Pod. Brought to you by Grassland Agro. The Sod Pod. Hello, and welcome to the Sod Pod. We've just stepped into September. John, what's the current state of play at the moment?
I suppose the current state of play is that we're all geared up, ready for the ploughing now, shortly enough. We had a great Tullamore show there in August, so all guns blazing now for the ploughing championships. Hopefully the weather will come right. I suppose there at the end of August there's a lot of dry weather. It was a fair drought there, and the rainfall definitely do grass growth the world good, but I suppose in terms of the ploughing it would be great to see the bit of sunshine back again like it was last year.
Yeah, it was unbelievable weather, wasn't it?
Serious, like, yeah.
And actually, Claude, a few weeks ago your mum and dad headed off to electric picnic and you didn't get to go, so will they not go to the ploughing this year?
No, they won't get the ploughing.
And are you going to the farming version of electric picnic?
I'm going to the farming version, yeah. I'll be there. I suppose I'll be on the stand one day and sure I might go up myself then the next day.
That's the job.
You won't camp, will you? Or?
No, I'll try not to anyway.
Was the Western Donkeys was playing last week or last year, was it?
I think so,
Some
I think it was
band
actually, yeah.
It was packed out, I think.
You were in the beer tent, so Peter, were you?
Definitely not. He was from Judy.
I went looking for a lad in there. That was the only reason I was in there now. I got lost in there for a while, you know.
Yeah.
But obviously, look, Tullamore show, as you said, was on. That's Tullamore show. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. It's a great event, isn't it? Like again, here it was over there at the 10th of August there 3 weeks ago, and you know, is it going to be 2 days next year? That noise is getting bigger and bigger, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in Tullamore now this year between the show and the ploughing now. It'll be interesting to see a new location as well, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. So I just think those sort of events are great. I know, look, we need weather to play ball. Even I was down at the Pilltown show or the Ivork show as well, and you know that was an interesting day as well. And, you know, these events are getting bigger. There's a lot going on. You know, like, is it a family fun day? Is it a farming knowledge day? There's a whole mixed bag going on for all the family at these sort of events. But my biggest thing with the ploughing is you talk to people in August, I don't know what I go at all. And around the first week of September, I'd probably go up, I check the weather, I'm not too sure. And then you meet them 2 or 3 days above the ploughing when it gets around. It is 300,000 people still showed up again this year. It is an amazing undertaking. Yeah,
no, sure. I was even saying to you earlier, Jim, about the same thing as EP. Coming up to people like, oh no, I'm not going. And then a week before, sure, they're going for the whole weekend.
Yes, yeah. EP is electric picnic for our older listeners, myself included.
Yeah, it's the FOMO, isn't it? Everyone afraid to miss out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Afraid to miss something.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty, and this year, weather-wise, has been great for big events, whether it be your concerts or the stuff we're here to talk about, the farming sector, the farming industry, and it's been great the way the weather has played ball with a lot of the shows and events this year as well, you know.
Yeah.
And there's people that just need to meet, gather, have the chats, learn a few more components as well, you know.
Yeah, sure, something to look forward to. Like when the 2 All-Irelands are over, you don't know what to look forward to.
There'll be a lot of us going up to talk about the All-Irelands. I mean, I want to hear them on again.
You'd have to be looking for the All-Irelands in Roscommon, would you do?
Sure, look. Next year.
You might win a few medals down at Flair. For hurling or football, anyway, the Rossies are still a long way off.
No, it's been 1943 and 44 the last time we won an All-Ireland for football, yeah, so it's been a while now. So
at least you've won one anyway.
I've won 2.
Or a week ago.
When we win one, we won twice.
What's the story then, Peter? What's going on now? What are we looking out for?
Well, I suppose, looking on the back of talking to shows and the good weather in the field, I suppose, have posed some challenges, to be fair. Really, I suppose from the last podcast, it's still very much the same situation. It's very region specific in the sense that some parts of the country are, grass growing while thriving away. Other parts are in severe deficits or have been up until, I suppose, the rain that came this week. I was talking to, I think, Claudia, you were saying down around Kerry, they're getting away alright. And then in other parts, more so in the southeast, they're getting hit big time with drought. Well, moisture deficits, low growth rates, and I suppose it's kind of a whatever about fair enough from balancing with the demand that you have there at this time of year, but I suppose at the time of year we're also trying to at that stage now build covers going into the autumn months, so it adds another sort of challenge or complexity that's there when you're trying to maybe improve your build your overall average farm cover. So I suppose look with the weather that came there now, you'd be hoping to get a bit of a bounce. Historically, September can be quite positive in terms of grass growing month. Just every farm's going to be a little bit different on the back of such a variation in the growing conditions across August. Really, that's what what I'm seeing at the minute. Anyway,
because there is a lot of heat in the ground, so once it gets that moisture, grass will take off. Like
very true. Yeah.
So I think that rain there towards the end of August there will do growth rates an awful lot.
You'd be. I know hoping can sometimes be. We can't hinge on it, but you'd be hoping, I suppose, from the mineralisation point of view. As you say, the heat's there. Once we get a bit of moisture, the clover and stuff it'll start to play its part as well.
Yeah.
It could be needed too, I suppose. As you get near the end of the spreading season, so there's a running out of anything else. And mineralisation probably going to keep some lands going, isn't it? That's
it. Yeah, and even I suppose that's some of the questions. When we're out in farm looking to see what sort of allowances we have left. If you haven't already worked that out, that's probably something that needs to be done right now. And it's a fairly. If you have your overall nutrient management allowance, all you're doing is checking on ag food to see what nitrogen you bought for the year, provided this obviously make sure that wherever your co-op you buy your fertiliser from, that they have the most recent dockets updated, and you're doing a simple subtraction figure and then working out sort of what allowance you have to put across the farm, to carry over that last 15-day period.
I suppose it's worth running through some of the key dates as well. Coming into September, there's several things to be mindful of. So 14th of September is the end of the chemical fertiliser spreading season, and this year is unique as it's the last year you can spread unprotected urea. You have the end of the slurry spreading season at the end of September, and I suppose and the farmyard manure is the 31st of October. So I have to make sure I get them all right.
But I think that, to be fair, that shows nearly the complexity of it. Like, they're changing so frequently, and like those dates, like this time 2 years ago, they were different, and they sort of every year extended a little bit. Like, so to be fair, you could very easily get caught with that, and even the likes of the dairy washings now, every farm is from the 1st of December to the 31st of December. No spreading,
So that's no chemical N&P after the 14th. But there is an exception when you're sowing winter crops, as we kind of mentioned in the last podcast. If you index 1 and 2 pea soils, you can spread phosphorus fertiliser prior or during drilling up until the 31st of October. So keep all that in mind anyway.
Just to clarify, please go online and verify all those dates, just in case.
And probably looking with that, I suppose the dates, like something we're seeing there now is the fertiliser, whatever nutrient balance you have left. It's probably worth, if you have the soil moisture there and you're growing a reasonable growth rate of around 40 a day, you're probably, obviously there is parts of the country will be growing more, but any less you're starting to question whether the viability of spreading nitrogen is going to have any play. But you're really going to benefit probably if you can get it on in the early part of September as opposed to holding off until those later few days, because obviously you're going to have a lot less daylight, and light's very important for growth, and you could see a drop in temperatures as well. So to get maximum use out of your nitrogen you're putting out now, provided the soil conditions are right for growing, you'll probably as well try and move that now in the beginning of September as opposed to holding off.
I suppose the earlier, as you said there, the earlier you get it out in the month the better, because the response will be better from a fertiliser point of view. And nitrogen really important for grass growth, and I suppose we'll talk about K later on. K very important for water regulation in the plant, like as we were talking about there earlier on. Those lads are out there this year, so K is a really important nutrient to get in, and great opportunity as well this autumn to push on grass growth too. And
just on P and K indexes, I suppose farmers are probably start going to think about soil sampling soon. It's worth mentioning another change coming on the 15th of September. From the 15th onwards, every soil sample must have a geotag or the Lipus number attached, so each sample is attached to the field now. That's a requirement, or else the soil sample is invalid. And I suppose for the coming season, the 2026 growing season, keep in mind that any sample that's older than the 14th of September 2022 is out of date. So you can start looking into getting new samples taken during the winter if you're going to have samples out of date. And just to keep in mind, you'd want to wait at least 3 months after P&K application, whether it's slurry or fertiliser, before you go taking that sample.
Yeah.
Take that scenario now with the geotag, right? So, as a farmer, I do my own soil samples and I send them to the lab. How am I going about getting a geotag location?
You can give them the Lippis parcel number, so it's either or.
Very good.
You give the
Okay.
Lippis parcel, or else you have your geotag.
But the geotags are being taken through an app, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So that most of our contractors, obviously in Grassanegra, all our staff are geotagged. That's how we work our own system, which is great. But as the farmer that does his own, he has that number. Yes, perfect. Okay. No, it's just kind of a curveball there that I was kind of going, Jesus, how are we going to get around that? But obviously contractors out there, let's be all know that they're all working their own app systems, etc. And as we know, we've our own high-tech soil sample system that we run ourselves here in Grassanegra for the last 3-4 years, which is geotagged ahead of the curve. So from our point of view, we had to change that anyway, thank God. You know what I mean? But I know it's just an interesting point because it does make our samples null and void in the department eyes if you don't have that as well. You know, it's just another problem in the system, just to be aware of. You know.
Well, Clodagh, when we do get the soil samples, what's the key things?
Yeah, so I suppose looking at this time of the year, I know John had mentioned K application. So I suppose this time of the year now, as Stephen was saying, you know, we only have 2 weeks now until the closing date. So I suppose another thing for farmers to maybe be thinking about is K applications in the back end. So as John was saying, you know, K is very important for driving on grass seals, water and nutrient regulation throughout the plant, so particularly on drier farms that might experience drought at different times of the year. But it's also very important for nitrogen use efficiency as well, so getting a better bang for your buck out of your chemical nitrogen. But I suppose, look, there's a couple of things. Look, there's no rules or regulations around potassium applications. You can go any time of the year once conditions allow, and there's no restrictions on the amount either. But there are a couple of things I suppose that farmers need to think about and nail down beforehand. So I suppose any farmer that is on our soil sustainability programme would have got a silage cut and weigh done during the year. So look, if there's any farmers out there that haven't done that this year, I definitely be recommending doing it for next year, because I suppose, look, you can't, I suppose, manage what you don't measure. For every 1 tonne of dry matter that's taken off in the form of silage, it's removing 4 kilos of P, 25 kilos of K. So it's fairly high off takes in terms of your potassium. So that's one of the first things to look at. You also need to whip out soil sample results, as you were saying, Peter. Identify that index 1 and 2 ground and make sure that gets a lash of potassium this end of the year. I suppose the back end of the year would be primarily the most popular for building K indexes. I suppose one of the most important things is to not go out with too much K, especially in the springtime. It can have effects on animal health. So if you have too much potassium coming in through the grass, it can block up magnesium uptake within the animal, causing the likes of grass tetany and milk fever and things like that. So just to bear that in mind. I suppose, look, there's a couple of different ways, or a couple of different products you can look at as well. Muriate of potash is a fairly popular one this time of year, so it's a 0.50 product. Just a general rule of thumb as well, 1 bag of muriate of potash will bring up 1 soil K index. So just to keep that in mind. If you also are looking at getting a little bit more out of your ground, I know, look, Stephen was mentioning about the nitrogen allowances tightening up. We do have a product on our speciality range. It's called Solid K. So there's 23 units of K in that. There's a microbial stimulant in it as well, so it stimulates the microbes in the ground to work through that organic matter and release nutrients in the soil. There's also technology called calciumer in it, so that's high enough in calcium and magnesium, and that'll help maintain soil surface pH and things like that. So look, there's a couple of things just there to think about in terms of potassium applications.
And I suppose, like, I know you mentioned there, like, your 0050, your MOP, like, even now, when out with your last round of nitrogen, you can get your NK product there with sulphur, you know, with 0P. So where you have really, I suppose, a lot amount of K to build, if you want to avoid putting it all, obviously, in one application, you can go out now with your NK product, and then, you know, as you were saying, it's not regulated, So maybe towards the end of September, you can then put in your add-ons or whatever, what biowinter is. And something there probably too that we is well worth mentioning is the slurry. Like the value of the K content in the slurry. Like again, I think what is at the end of, you were saying, Stephen, the end of September before we can empty the tanks. But like if you can, obviously weather dependent, see an opportunity to get slurry onto your fields. Granted, the nitrogen component is going to be that bit less now compared to the springtime, but like you will get much more usage out of those nitrogen units as well, where you are, I suppose, what would you say, restricted with your chemical in. So again, it's back to trying to get most amount of, I suppose, bang for your buck in terms of the grass growth. When the grass is growing harder, obviously we have more of a use for the nutrients. So obviously if you're looking at your K number one, there's going to be an element of nitrogen there as well that we can help us try and push on to help build those covers towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Even talking about the money aspect of it, talking about the costs of potassium as well. I was reading there the other day, if you drop a soil K index, if you go from an index 3 to an index 2 or a 2 to a 1, that can be up to a loss of 1 ton to 1.5 tons of dry matter per hectare a year. So there's fairly big losses. Like what's a ton of dry matter worth now? 250, 300 euros a hectare. So there is fairly substantial losses for not keeping up with your K indexes.
Yeah, and I suppose when we're we're constantly talking about nitrogen restrictions, but I suppose that's coming from the regulation piece. That's very important, in having all three aspects, sort of your P, your K, your pH humming in to try and counteract or to maximise that gain from grass growth, Because if any one of them are limiting, they're going to have a big knock-on effect. What you're saying there, a ton just on K, if you have all three of them, I just think, mediocre pH, low P's, low K's, you're setting yourself up to grow less grass up.
And I suppose it's a good time here to get in line there too, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the back end, look, while you have the soil sample results out, it's no harm to identify fields that might be, I suppose, on the lower end of the pH scale. So I suppose look for a typical mineral soil, you'll be looking for a pH of 6.3 to 6.5. Look, it's a cost effective product, it's widely available, there's a high return on investment. I think I was reading for every €1 invested in lime, you're getting between a €4 and a €7 return. So it's definitely a no-brainer. And as Peter was saying, having your P's and K's right, having your pH right, you can unlock between 60 and 80 kilos of nitrogen a year. So that's definitely something to be looking at with tighter nitrogen rules as well.
And we're huge fans of lime. Remember, we don't sell any lime, and every one of our nutrient management plans has a liming program. It's such an important item,
definitely,
isn't it? We're big advocates for lime.
If we're presenting the nutrient management plans, that's the first thing we will speak about.
Yes.
Look where the pH is at.
Yeah.
You say it's not something we're selling or that, but for any nutrient management plan to work efficiently, you have to have that humming.
Because the first thing to get right on farm is your pH.
It's regulating all the availability of all nutrients.
I suppose the expense you're going at buying fertiliser, it's important. Utilise that as much as you can economically on farm.
I suppose it's not new knowledge, but I suppose traditionally it was always something that was left towards the end of the year, and obviously then you're battling wet periods. But the reality is, look, you can bring it forward now. In terms of using it, there's different caveats. I suppose slurries first, the limes. If you put your slurry on first, you can wait a week after for your lime. I suppose the main one to be aware of is if the lime goes on first, you're typically waiting 3 months before you can get a slurry application. So in the case where you have the slurry, you're taking the tall cut off the silage ground, the slurry's all already spread, you might have the slurry that's there. It's an ideal opportunity. Even for grazing ground, putting it on, as long as it's on a low cover, there's rain forecast to wash it away. It's not, and obviously you're not going to be bringing back any lime residue into surplus bales, which is probably not going to be a common issue now, just I suppose based on the current situation we're in, maybe in a small few parts of the country. It is an ideal opportunity to push on with it,
I think timing is definitely a big thing, Peter. Going back now, was it 2 years ago I done my masters, I would have done my research on lime application, and that was definitely the biggest thing that came up was timing. Farmers were well aware you could spread it any time of the year, but I suppose it was the interactions with urea and slurry and just trying to get the timing right. I suppose this time of the year as well, you have the weather working against you, so look, I suppose it is hard to get the timing right, but it's definitely it's well worth it in the end when you do get it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to clarify that, you mentioned on the urea, if you put your lime out first, straight to urea, obviously you don't follow it for 3 months.
Yeah.
But you're protected a week after you're saving up, isn't it?
You're saving up
Yeah.
and can as well, yeah.
But I suppose you're protected area. It's days or your straight area days are limited now by another 14 days or so.
Yeah.
All has to be used up. So.
Tillage time. What's going on, Steve?
My favourite part of the podcast.
Yeah, look at him. He's just grown 2 inches taller. Yes.
Yeah, I suppose I was speaking about the harvest in the last podcast, but it finished up very quickly. Really, after the last podcast, it was, as we mentioned, the great weather. It was great for that anyway. Yields were fairly good. I mentioned some of the earlier crops in the last podcast, but I suppose winter wheat, a lot of lads are very happy with it. Yeah? There was talk of crops at 5 tons the acre, very good crops. Spring barley, quite a mixed bag, quite a range of yields. Anywhere from 2 tons the acre and real dry, burnt up land to up to 3.8, even 4 ton mentioned in some cases. Maybe some of that might have been slightly exaggerated by some lads, but sure. There was,
You get that too.
you get that too, but there definitely was some huge yields of spring barley out there too. And there's just lads finishing up spring beans now. They're obviously a bit later, but they seem to be going fairly well. Probably averaging around 2.5 ton, which would be good for spring beans. Again, the range as well, depending on whether they got caught with a bit of a drought. There's obviously lower yields around 1.5 ton. And slightly higher than the average too, but all in all, probably a good harvest for yields. I won't drone on about the price too much again. The price is useless. Just might leave it at that, not be depressing to the farmers.
Yeah.
So you could feed up for the rest of the year.
Oh gee, I wish. I wish. No, our lads are ripping it to so nicely right. I'd say there's a lot of it in by now. Again, we got a good spell of weather to get that in, and then a splash of rain and get that flying. As John mentioned, a lot of heat in the soil now. It'll absolutely fly if it gets a drop of rain. I suppose one thing to be mindful of with oilseed rape is just the slugs. Farmers are familiar enough with that anyway, just to keep an eye out for them, especially in headlands or beside bits of grass and headlands. They always go mad there, and just get a few slug pellets if necessary. And I suppose then you're looking forward to a winter cereal sowing, so it won't be long coming around too. Some farmers like to start sowing late September now, especially with winter barley. There's great options there now with the barley yellow dwarf virus tolerance in some of the varieties. So I suppose it's about planning at this stage in the month, in early September. You're planning your variety. Well, first of all, you're planning your crop. I suppose look at the returns from this year and look at the returns for the last 5 years and weigh up what crops you think could be the most profitable going forward, if any of them are going to be profitable. But I suppose the winter barley, you're looking at your sowing date and your variety. You can go with your early sowing date if you've barley yellow dwarf virus tolerance. It takes a lot of risk out of it because aphids will be quite active when it's warm this time of year, but that tolerance mitigates that risk a lot. Another thing worth noting, it's not on recommended lists, but I think farmers should be looking at the vigour of varieties too. If you're sowing real early, you probably want a slower developing variety, especially if you're sowing early because you have very heavy land and you're trying to get it in before the weather breaks. So if you're getting your barley in early, say in heavy land, the chances are it's going to be wet in the springtime, early in the year. It's going to be hard to get out with early nitrogen. And barley loves early nitrogen to get a tiller, and it's very strong correlation with tiller and yield. So maybe a slower developing variety will need the nitrogen later in the spring when you're able to get out in heavier land. Just something to be wary of. Probably talk to whoever you're buying your seed off, as it's it mightn't be mentioned on the recommended list. The recommended list will be coming out in the next few weeks now. So when you're choosing variety, look at, as I said, the BYDD tolerance. You're always looking at your disease resistance profile and yield, of course. But there's some good options on winter barley. As I haven't seen the winter wheat recommended list yet, I can't comment too much on it, but I suppose this year there was a big breakdown of disease resistance to yellow rust, so keep a close eye on that. The YR15 genes broke down in certain varieties, but not all varieties had them, so they're obviously going to score higher for resistance now after that performance this year.
And on that, Stephen, are they attributing that to some trigger in the weather or stress, or what was the
for the yellow rust? It was a new strain of yellow rust. It came from well, from what I came from, so I think northeast England, and it's because it's wind dispersed it came to Ireland. So that's why there was a serious breakdown and serious amounts of disease in crops this year. It didn't seem to not be as too bad because there is still good fungicide options to control the yellow rust. But it's going to be something, I'll mention it later in the year, early next year. I think everyone's probably going to have to preventively spray for yellow rust going forward, given that we can't rely on genetic resistance anymore. You kind of need both of them. You need a bit of genetic resistance, you probably need fungicide action as well, just to keep on top of things. But
what sort of time frame are you looking like? Are you typically walking these crops at, to keep on top of it?
For yellow rust, you'll be looking sort of March onwards. You won't see any earlier than that.
Right.
It's a long way away yet, but I suppose it's about picking a variety now that's going to have resistance for next year. You have to make these decisions now, I suppose, is the key thing. That's kind of the roundup for the tillage looking for the coming months. I suppose we get to the ploughing matches, might see a bit of good ploughing as well.
Overall, good year in tillage, atrocious price.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Just no fucking luck at all in this game.
That's the game we're in.
Just talking with you off camera, Stephen, there earlier, you were saying, I suppose, something about, I suppose, in the media at the minute, there's a few, I suppose, headlines there about changes in the NAP regulations. There's been nothing officially published yet, alright, but I suppose we believe there's been something leaked and certain, some people have seen it.
Yes.
You were saying from the tillage point of view there was going to be potentially some changes on the cards to organic manure going on, is there?
Yeah, there is talk of that there could be a ban on spreading high nitrogen organic manures in the autumn time ahead of winter cereals, such as your poultry manure or even slurry, or if the winter cereal isn't going to uptake the nitrogen, there's concern that's affecting water quality. So that could be a challenge going forward. But then there's the converse, that if you don't get it on in the autumn time and you grow winter cereals, you can't really have dung spreaders weighing 20 tonne driving around fields in the springtime. As it cut up the fields, it's not really viable. So then all that manure would have to go towards spring cropping, and manures don't often suit the likes of malt and barley because it can drive up protein. So you have all these things to weigh up. But it's could be an issue, alright. I'm sure there's talks of changes for dairy platforms as well, isn't there?
Yeah, part of that there seem to be a few. What was hinted at, I suppose, is looking at maybe a reduction on nitrogen on some around the stocking rates, or around, I should say, the milking platform on some farms. To try and counteract maybe. That's why you have a whole farm allowance. Obviously, that nutrient allocation, I suppose the thinking behind it isn't going to the whole farm. It's been concentrated in one area. So, I suppose, look, it's something we should just watch for. Obviously, it's going to have an impact potentially on farms. Number one, but for ourselves doing our nutrient management plans to make sure they're up to date and compliant with rates. And that they're ticking boxes in terms of getting the most out of our nutrients, nutrient use efficiency, improving that. It is something we have to watch, and I suppose it's probably more than likely going to be a consultation of some sort, maybe over the next month or so, that when we see it publicised, we'll probably be able to know more then on the thinking,
So we're in the sphere of rumour or leak at the moment, which is creating that little bit of uncertainty. I suppose we are lucky, obviously we are department approved on nutrient management plans, so at least when it gets to that stage we'll be compliant when we get out the other side, but it's just a frustration for all at the moment with these sort of, as I say, rumour or leak,
Yeah, no, it's just as you say, it's something to watch, but I suppose one thing we're sure of, the NAP is only going for a 4-year basis, and it's due to cease now at the end of this year, and obviously on the 1st of January 2026 we're going to see the new rollout of it, which is basically just the nitrate regulations are all already farming by the next year close periods, and the dates that Stephen went through, all it's already covered for. So there will be there's usually some sub form of an update, so just watch this space, isn't it?
We'll keep everyone posted. That's all we can do.
John, autumn grass.
Yeah, I suppose we're in the month of September now, so I know in a previous podcast over the summer we talked a bit about mid-season grazing management. I suppose now we're here to talk about autumn grass and autumn grassland management. Again, it's a very important part of the year. I suppose really important to look ahead to the next 5-6 weeks and manage your grass as best you can. We talked there a little bit about the drought there towards the end of August and the challenges that brought, and I suppose the growth rates were well below average there, which brought many challenges, particularly for the south and east and other parts of the country as well, up my direction as well in the west. But yeah, I suppose extending your grazing rotation out is definitely one objective you can do during September. So maybe achieving a rotation of maybe 28-30 days depending on your stocking rate. Splitting the farm up with strip grazing, making sure that you don't graze out your platform too quick, because you don't want to run out of grass, especially as Peter was saying earlier on, the days become shorter, soils start to get cooler, grass growth rates go down, so you don't want to graze out the platform too quick. So I suppose that management is going to be very important for the next 5-6 weeks. Supplement if you have to as well, I suppose, with maybe a high quality forage, high quality silage, just I suppose to maintain that 28-day, 30-day rotation,
I suppose looking at that as well, John, a couple of key targets for the 1st of September, just looking at the autumn spring rotation planner, I suppose at a stocking rate of 2.5 livestock units per hectare, you're looking at a cover per cow of about 300 kilos and an average farm cover of 750 kilos as well. I suppose at the start of the podcast we talked about different parts of the country that were in soil moisture deficits. I suppose they're back on grass growth this year. Just a couple of different things I suppose they can look at as well in terms of building cover towards the end of the year. I suppose one thing would be removing excess stock. If there's a couple of cull cows there on the milking platform, to get rid of those, to take a bit of pressure off. As you said, supplementing feed, silage mainly I suppose will take pressure off the grazing platform as well. And I suppose if there's any more ground coming in, like silage ground, if you had ground closed up for a third cut or a bit of receding ground coming back in as well, will take a bit of pressure off.
100%, I suppose there's no real one fix all answer. There's a lot of different strategies you can do, as you touched on there, reducing demand, maybe drafting out cows that you might need at the grazing platform, cows that might have high stomach cell count, lameness, bits like that, reducing the demand, because usually around the 2nd-3rd week September, you usually demand outcompetes growth, so doing things like that is very important. 100%.
Probably I know some farms will identify quite closely to looking at growth rates, and some really put a big emphasis on it and use it to steer their decisions quite closely, and then other farms maybe don't measure. They would kind of typically say, not really grass based, but the principle is kind of the same between both farms. At the end of the day, you're trying to graze out for as long as you can into the winter. So, it's really about taking stock where you are right now in terms of what grass is there and any corrective action that needs to be done between now and when your typical closing up period is, because that's obviously going to vary hugely depending on whether you're north or south or heavy farms or what kind of soil type you're farming.
We talked a good bit about fertiliser application earlier on in this podcast. If the thing that you've run out of your nitrogen phosphorus allowances, even going out with your dairy washings, or it's very good for the platform as well. Just stimulate growth and try and get the most out of your grass in the autumn.
Absolutely. And I suppose a point on that, sometimes I suppose the likes of this year, clover was a very good year, and a lot of farmers where where they had good clover percentages, maybe an average of 20% plus across the year, they're able to get out the nitrogen there towards in those last few months, I suppose. But just on the final round, it's probably worth putting some form of chemical in, or majority an organic in, be it slurry or dairy washings in on those clover pellets, because I suppose while we may get favourable weather, all going well in September, you're going to start to see those clover percentages falling back, and you don't want to, I suppose, to get see that lack of herbage just on those paddocks. So a lesser amount of nitrogen, maybe supplementing from 20 units back to maybe 15, 12 units, will depend on where your clover percentage is at, will just keep them pushed down for the year.
100%.
I suppose one of the final stress points, right, it's 2 weeks to go, I have to stop spreading, and I have 4 ton of unprotected urea in the yard. I got it at a good price, If I don't use that in the next 2 weeks, I can't use it. So is there a pressure point that could be on a farm that if I have the 4 ton and I have no allowance, well obviously I shouldn't have bought it because the purchase of it was in breach of the reg, right? So in theory, if I purchased it and was following the rules, I need to get that out in the next 2 weeks. Or else I'm getting into a minefield which is, it has to be liquefied, and there's all those there's still a few grey areas. So what advice would you give me now? I have the 4 ton of it, there's 2 weeks to go, it's unprotected, but I'm not in breach of my allowance. What should I do with it?
I suppose, look, the fact you have a deadline looming over you that potentially, that if you breach, you could be into a financial penalty risk, and obviously you have the financial penalty element of it, but then you're probably in a higher risk category then under the apartment system. So to avoid that, look, you have to probably have moved. And when I say moved, sure, you're going to have to spread it. I suppose the efficiency of your unprotected urea, you really want to be getting it in when it's rain forecast, and obviously any of the plants that we'd be doing in your summer period, we'd be always walking off your protected zone. Because just to allow for that, so it's to be aware of its limitations too.
So, in reality, it's a short-term problem right at this moment, and obviously it'll be the end of the unprotected urea. Might go forward anyway. So, but there might be a pressure point now because I messed up in that example. It's just a short problem, and let's get out next year and keep protected, isn't it?
Yeah, and even on that, I suppose moving away even from this unprotected urea, any stock that's left over, as long as you declare it, it's taken over in the yard, so when it's on the farm from the 15th of September, generally speaking, you have 30 days to declare it, and it'll be staying until next year.
Brilliant. Yeah. Right, we'll see you at the Ploughing. We can't wait for it. If you want to speak to these highly educated, beautiful people, they'll all be available on the stand. Plus, I suppose,
James will be in the beer tent.
Guaranteed looking for people. I was just doing a bit of networking there. And a special shout out as always to Noel Hamill, who's the main guy that leads out our Ploughing stand for us the last 2 years. He puts in a huge amount of additional work and motivates the troops and gets them all going. But call over to Noel and the full crew, and you'll meet the guys there as well. I can't wait for it. I'd say it now at this stage. Wouldn't have said that 4 weeks ago as usual. We fall foul of the same logic with the National Ploughing Championships. Bring it on. Mind yourselves out there. Farm smart, farm safe.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Sod Pod. We hope you enjoyed it. To find out more, head over to www.grasslandagro.ie or check out our social channels: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube. That's all for this episode. See you next time.